Thank you so much for staying with the Monday Report. The Town Hall session begins right now, live from the KMTC Town Hall, and we're talking about the justice system response to police accountability. Now, that may sound a bit complicated. What you're talking about is there's a report by IJM, and the authors are here. They'll tell us what details about them, but the highlight is 42.9% of Kenyans have experienced some kind of police abuse of power, be it harassment or corruption. A further 62% do not report those incidences. Why? Because of the lack of trust deficit. So that's a conversation we're having. We'd like to hear from you mostly. How do we fix that system? Despite all the numerous task force reports, right from the Ranzel report in 2009, 16 years down the line, what has been achieved at Trevor Mbija, Citizen TV Kenya? Use the hashtag Citizen Monday Report. Let me start by introducing my panelists. From my immediate left, Vincent Jahale is here, the Country Director, International Justice Mission, that is IJM. Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
Isaac Hassan is here, the Chairman, IPOA, that is Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Asante sana for making time. Right next to him is Irungu Houghton, the Executive Director, Amnesty International Kenya. Thank you very much for making time. Jedaida Waroyo is here. She's the CEO, Witness Protection Agency. Thank you very much for making time. And Charles Owino, former police spokesperson and also the head of National Communications Center. Thank you very much for making time. And Charlie, I'll start with you on this. I mentioned a report earlier on, the 2022-2024 report on the police abuse of power. Give us a general overview of what you found out.
Thank you. The International Justice Mission commissioned a study. The essence of the study was to basically measure four things with regards to police abuse of power. One, it was to measure the prevalence of police abuses. Secondly, it was to assess the reliance of members of the public on the criminal justice system for protection against police abuses. Then thirdly, we sought as an objective to determine the levels of confidence of the stakeholders in the criminal justice system on how it reacts to police accountability or how it enforces police accountability. And lastly, it was to determine the performance of the criminal justice system insofar as police accountability is concerned. And so we had several findings, which I will just give in an upshot. One was what you mentioned, that almost 43%, 42.9% of the participants who were interviewed, of the respondents, had experienced some form of police abuse. I needed to mention that we had 5,700 respondents across all the regions of Kenya. We conducted the study in 9 counties spread across the former provinces of Kenya. Another finding that we found was that the people who are abused, 61% are male and the rest are female. We also made a finding that Kisumu County seemed to be the county that had the most prevalence of police abuse. We also found out that the highest form of police abuse was corruption and extortion, which came in at 55%, almost 56%, 55.8%. Then harassment, which came in at 54%. Then police inaction or negligence of duty was also another form of abuse that was prevalent, 15.5%. And then wrongful detention, which was at 15.1%. And there was also an interesting finding that 12.7% of the respondents who were interviewed complained of the use of obscene, insulting, or abusive language by the police. We also had a finding that most of the abuses occur on Fridays. Friday had 54.9%, and then Saturdays, the abuses we had at 46%, and then Sundays. So the finding was that towards the end of the week is when you find most abuses being prevalent. Also, an interesting fact was that police misconduct seems to spike towards the end of the month. So from the dates of 25th, 26th, 27th, up to the 31st, then you find a spike in terms of police abuses. We also looked at different, what I would call seasons. And we found that during the electioneering period, we had 23.5% of police abuses happening during that period. Also, we found that on certain occasions, for example, during police crackdown, we found that was the time we found most prevalent police abuses occurring at 31.7%. Then during market days, for those who may have grown up in the city and do not know, in rural areas we have market days. We found a lot of prevalence of police abuse at 25.2%. Then thirdly was during public demonstrations, such as the ones we had last year at 23.2%, and also during social events. Then in terms of reporting, we found that 7 out of 10 people who had never experienced police abuse said that they would report in the event they experienced. However, of those who had experienced police abuse, we found that 7 out of 10 did not report. So it seems that before one experiences, they are very confident that if they did, they would report. But after the experience, only 3 out of 10 people report that abuse for varied reasons. Yeah. So also we found the levels of confidence to be very low. Among the people interviewed, 14.3% were confident in the system that it can protect them from police abuse. Only 7.8% were confident in the efficiency of the system. But a third of the respondents were confident in the fairness of the system. Okay. So in a nutshell, those were some of the findings that we found in the study.
Okay, let's delve into that in a bit, and let me bring in Isaka-san on this. Just to set the stage, how many cases of police excesses is IPOA handling as we speak? So that then gives us the magnitude of this situation.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Just to mention that we work very closely with IJM, International Justice Mission. They are one of our most important non-state actors in the area of police accountability. Now, to answer to your question, IPOA received 34,988 complaints. IPOA was set up to provide civilian oversight over the police. Its main work is to receive complaints from members of the public against police misconduct. It can do that by either receiving a complaint directly from a victim's family, or on its own motion, or because it's a matter reported in the public media. And so we take action. Of course, it takes time to investigate and then recommend prosecution to the Director of Public Prosecution before we can then charge the officer in court. Some of the cases are not going to go to court. Some of them are resolved much earlier through different ways of resolution, SJS including. Sometimes the DPP may not recommend prosecution, but may recommend a public inquest or other forms of justice. But by and large, let me just give you the data, Trevor. 34,988 complaints received from the public on the police. Out of this, 911 were referred back to the Internal Affairs Unit, more or less like disciplinary matters of misconduct that don't rise to the level of criminal conduct. So out of the 34,000, another 11,224 were investigated properly now by the IPOA. Some of the complaints were referred to out of the, remember the figure, 34,988. That's the baseline. 911 were given to IAU. 11,200 were investigated by IPOA. 2,555 were dealt with by IPOA in terms of monitoring and inspection. 4,300 were referred to Ethics and Corruption Commission, NCAJ, National Land Commission, NTSA, and Retirement Benefit Authority, and DCI. Others were referred to the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, National Police Service, and the National Police Service Commission. So these are the 4,302 and 965. And finally, We have conducted and completed investigation on 11,224. Out of this, there are over 260 cases in court. There are over 280 files which are with the DPP, which means that we have completed investigations and recommended prosecution, but they're still with the DPP to give back either a go-ahead or to recommend other charges.
Okay. Irungu, what kind of reforms would be effective in the entire justice system? You've had the numbers here. Chahale says 7 out of 10 people do not want to report. Hassan says that 34,000 cases have been reported to them. What kind of reforms are needed for this justice system to truly work for the people?
Yeah, first of all, maybe, Trevor, let me just start by saying that when I read the report about a month ago, I was really struck by really what is described is almost a predatory agency. It is an agency that preys on the vulnerable, it profiles the weak, it goes into communities that are least prepared to be able to protect themselves. You're talking about primarily informal settlements, high-density neighborhoods, and places where there is really no, there's very few levers of protection for people. I mean, just apart from the statistics you've given there, I mean, I think there were two that I had. One was, that something like 2 out of 3 Kenyans have witnessed abuse. 2 out of 3 Kenyans, not 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3 have experienced abuse. And I think the other thing that struck me a little bit is just the inability of, or rather the unwillingness, inability, or lack of capacity of Kenyans, citizens, to be able to report crimes against police. So if you're talking about 30%, 37%, I think is the figure, of Kenyans who will report an abuse, a crime committed by a police officer, then we're in a very difficult place. I think it's important also not to lose sight of the Kamata Fridays concept. We make jokes of it, but it means that for people who are coming to the end of their week, the most dangerous place to be, a person, a young man, a human rights defender, a Muslim, a person from a Kushite group, if you look Somali or Ethiopian, if you have a tattoo, if you have piercings, if you have dreadlocks, the most dangerous point is that weekend time. And I think we have to declare that the type of policing that most people are experiencing is not just scary, it's not just frightening, it is also a business model. There is a business model that underpins this extortion that we're seeing. So I think that's the first thing that I saw on this. So coming back to your question on reforms, often when I talk to colleagues, even people who are kind of constitutional lawyers, they say, what more reforms do we need? We had the Ransley report, we had the Kriegler report, we had the Maraga report, now we have the IGM report. What more recommendations do we require? And I think what I often say to people is that it is important to keep reminding the state that it has an obligation to provide service to all, not to those who can afford the fuel, just to make a topical comment. It's important that actually citizens feel equal access to justice and that they have a place to go to in the Independent Policing Oversight Authority or the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights or IGM or Amnesty International or any other organization for justice. And therefore, until the arc of accountability aligns with the arc of justice, we are going to continually see the abuse of police office and state power against citizens who tragically pay through taxes for the abuse that they receive. Now, let me just end by saying if there are police officers who are listening to me out there, particularly commanding officers, this is not an indictment of 100,000 police officers. It is simply a statement that requires much more diligence and much more, demolition, destruction of the Blue Code of Silence. One of the biggest things that I think we have to destroy in this country is this idea that uniforms must protect uniforms even when they're committing crimes. Those are some of the reforms that I think, were important to get. And I think the more that we can get citizens to have the courage, the knowledge, and the tools to be able to report criminal policing, the more we will be able to see the changes in our communities and in our neighborhoods.
Okay. I'd like to hear from all of you in terms of what more reforms are needed so that we find a solution out of where we are right now. But let me bring in Madam Waroyo on this, and then we talk about two issues. One is police accountability, and then there's the public trust of it. So why is it so difficult to hold the police accountable in your view? And then that also, the public trust diminishes in the process. Because there's something that Irungu has mentioned in that, is it an inability of the people to report these issues, or is it that there is going to be inaction anyway, so they'd rather not report? Why is it so difficult to hold the police accountable and to improve the public trust?
Well, I think it is possible to hold the police accountable because we have enough structures in terms of IPOA Policing Oversight Authority. We have the National Police Service Commission that disciplines and recruits the police. We have the Internal Oversight Unit in the National Police Service that provides internal mechanism. We have the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights that is the watchdog for all government institutions and also a policymaker. We have the non-state actors who continue to provide the accountability voice and voice the voice of the voiceless and the helpless. So I think there is a lot of opportunity for us to hold the police accountable. And we cannot forget the judiciary, which is the site that we all must go when it comes to matters of criminal behavior, abuse of power, and also the site that we go for constitutional matters in terms of abuse of office. However, despite that, the confidence must be built in terms of how many cases are going to court, are being prosecuted, and what is the outcome of those institutions. How many public citizens are fear going to court to testify, and an institution like the Witness Protection Agency is able to rise and provide them with special protection towards that. So I think there are so many mechanisms, from awareness to understanding the process, to also creating confidence in the process. Because we cannot say we need more reforms, and yet the reforms are there. Yes, institutions need to be equipped. For example, the National Police Service needs to be equipped, needs to be trained, and needs to build a proper relationship, an appropriate relationship with the citizenry. So the issues of finances and the issues of non-finances. But we must continue ensuring that the institutions that are established, which are paid by taxpayers' money, serve the people of this country. Okay.
Let me bring in Owino on this. Owino, I know you don't speak for the police anymore, but you've been there, so you'd understand this more than most of us who have not been in the system. When you hear the statistics and the numbers from Chahale, does it make sense to you? What really happened, especially, say, on Friday? Why would the police increase these incarcerations on Friday and harassment?
Thank you. I think, first of all, it is important to understand what is the role of the police in society. What responsibility do they have? Police basically are like prefects of the society. This is the person you rely to ensure that every person gets the protection that they require. For example, we are here, and we are confident sitting here because we know we cannot easily be attacked, because the policemen must be patrolling outside and working now at night. Or even when you are in your house, there should be some level of comfort knowing that there are police officers to protect you. So first of all, it is important to get to know what is their role. And in the process of the police doing their work, protecting the public, protecting our property, and many other issues, equally there are a number of individuals who are also planning to do wrong things. There are people who are thieves who are now working at night, looking for ways and means of attacking people and stealing from them. There are people now who are drinking past even normal drinking hours. You remember there are issues where you hear there are clubs which run throughout the night. But if you look at the original structure of the persons who colonized us, we had clubs. And when you go to any club in this country, you find that you must be a member, and if you're not a member, you must be introduced by somebody. Unlike where you find now people drinking outside, and then at the end of it, you'll find there are a number of people also who are drunk, who want to drive
when they are drunk. So you find the police getting involved in a lot of conflicts as they deal with people. You talk about Friday. The way people socialize on Friday is not the same as the way people socialize on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And ordinarily, you will find that on Saturday morning, if you go to most police stations, you will get a number of vehicles which have been taken to the police stations because people got accidents at night, and some lost their lives, some got injured.
So this has got nothing to do with the targeted revenue collection?
No. You remember where we had a situation of where they brought in something like Alcoblo to try and minimize the number of people drinking while driving while they're drunk. So this promotes, number one, conflict between police and the people that they want to police. Equally amongst the policemen, you will not miss people with bad character. I've always said that you cannot censor that somebody is a son of a bishop and therefore he cannot commit a crime. So even amongst the police officers that we have 120,000 police officers. You'll find a number of them who are having behavior that is not acceptable to society. Those who want to receive money from people, those who want to fight with people, those who want to do wrong things. There are quite a number. And if you look at his statistics, the statistics from IPOA, 34,988 cases were recorded.
Yeah.
I may not be the right person to describe it as minimal because, after all, policemen are trained and therefore we should have almost zero complaints. But if you look at the percentage of 34,000 vis-a-vis over 50 million Kenyans, then it comes to about 0.05%. It's quite minimal if you look at it in such numbers. But that does not mean that it is justifiable for a police officer to do something which is not right. But my major problem is our society, where we come from. We must ask ourselves a number of questions.
Okay.
You've talked about corruption, for example.
Yeah.
I've met situations where Kenyans are willing to bribe, not only policemen, willing to bribe anybody that he thinks he can bribe. You find you advertise for even jobs, like now we've just advertised for police jobs. People who are coming to us saying, nikutafutie kitu niandikie mtu, are very many, it's a fact. Even the chairman can tell you, I'm sure there are people approaching him and even telling him willingly that, can I give you something, you help me recruit my person. Kenyans are willing to give bribes, especially when they are competing for something, or even when even when they have made mistakes. And that is a very common character of our people. Even when you advertise for jobs or even you advertise for tenders, Kenyans are willing to pay bribes. So if you look at the society, our society in itself, we are a society that majority of us think corruption. And therefore, you don't expect the best out of police. And lastly, what I can say is that police is still not considered a noble institution by the general public. If you are to introduce yourself as a policeman, then people don't see that job as an important job. If you introduce yourself as a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, because there are policemen who are engineers. I remember the immediate former Inspector General, Kome, IG Kome, was an engineer. Okay. But you would find people ask, what are you coming to do in police? And yet police is the only institution that handles every aspect of life, from IT to engineering issues, everything meteorological, everything that you can talk about in society. But still, we have not made police a noble institution. And I can give you an example. The police are just recruiting. If you look at the majority of the individuals that will be presented for recruitment in police are either children who are disturbing their parents or children who have not performed very well in school. And it's not a first choice. And yet, this is a very important institution that is, because if you go even to the criminal justice system, it is the police that will be sent to investigate a case. It is the police that will prepare a case file. It is the police that will appear before court. The judges and magistrates are simply arbitrators. They listen. And
Right.
lastly, the persons will be taken to prisons.
Okay.
So it is a very important institution, and unless we change our attitude
Yeah.
towards what we want our police to be and think the best for them,
Yeah.
give them the best training, give them the best Kenyans, then we will just be making stories. We won't go far.
Okay, let me, by a show of hands, how many of you have experienced some kind of police excess? Either harassment or corruption, by a show of hands. So it's almost half. Okay, and I want to pass over the microphone to any of you to just speak about what kind of reforms do we need? Where's the microphone? If you have the microphone here, I know there's a lot of questions and concerns you can also pose. Pass the microphone tafadhali to the first person over here to hear what they have to say in terms of your question and also your reaction to what kind of reforms do you want to see now? There's a second one over there. Just stand as you raise your question. State your name. Kindly stand up. State your name and then pass the microphone to the lady behind you. So we'll take them in fours. Yes. Start with you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. My name is Ken Onyango, the National Chairman for Central Organization for Border Riders. Now, if you ask me, I think the very first reform that we need to see in the police should start from the point of recruitment. Recruitment. Because you cannot tell me that police is now a service. At the point of recruitment, we are still using the outdated system that used to be used all the days UCO in the 60s.
Okay.
Because I still don't understand why a police officer should be a very tall person. Yet maybe this is somebody with brains. You've just heard the spokesperson speaking about the police institution of the police needs to be respected.
Yeah.
But when it comes to recruitment, when you present your papers, you are this person with degrees. Those people that are doing recruitment, they fear these degrees because maybe you get into the police and immediately get promoted, then you come and sit on them, or you come with very serious reform. So they will not recruit you because you are this kind of a person that's not supposed to be there. So the process of recruitment, we should start the reforms there.
At the recruitment level.
So that it goes all the way to the colleges.
All right.
That is the point.
Thanks, Ken. Pass the microphone back to the lady behind you. Yes.
My name is Marion Joroge. I'm a grassroots human rights defender from Mount Kenya region. And I think one of the recommendations I would want to give as a grassroots defender is that we need to have an overhaul reforms from the inside. You cannot underpay a police officer, give him 27,000, expect him to live in a shanty inside a police station and expect the Kamata Fridays to stop. So we need to have reforms from the we need to have overhaul reforms from the whole system. The other thing, there is also violations even from the inside. We have internal affairs have been very instrumental in terms of this. We have had police coming to us complaining of being harassed from the inside. There is even sexual harassment from the inside the service. It's no longer a force, it's the service. So I think until the time we reform from the inside to the outside, we shall remain a backward nation. And finally, I want to express my sincerest disappointment to the former police spokesperson. I've been to his office very many times, and I used to get help. He used to be very progressive. I don't know what happened afterwards. We are not being kamatad every Friday because we are drinking. We are a drinking nation. We are being kamatad because police are hungry. We are being kamatad because police are underpaid. 27,000, and you expect him to maintain his girlfriends and many wives. It can never happen.
Okay, but you
I rest
don't
my
think,
case.
And Marion, now that you're still standing, you don't think that on Fridays there tends to be more social activities?
There is more money on Friday. Yes, because people are gathered on Friday. For example, if you talk about the CBD around this, in Nairobi, people go home early, maybe at around 5, but on Friday, people will always gather for a drink, for a social event. So it is easy. We are easily targeted on Friday. And because you are vulnerable, maybe you are drunk, you are arrested, you are vulnerable to give out some money. So we are being kamatad.
There also a likelihood of social misbehavior.
And not really. It cannot justify. It cannot justify why Ojwang hit his head on the wall.
Okay, pass the microphone to the person right in front of you. Pass the microphone right to the person in front of you and hear what you have to say. Yes, I'll come to you. There's a microphone back there.
My name is Ogada.
Yes, sir.
I teach the law and I practice the law. First and foremost, to Mr. Wino, the willingness to bribe being a common character of the Kenyan people, is a falsity. In 2002, we remember Kenyans used to arrest police officers taking bribes on the street, and we were ready to change this country. So it will be whole wrong and improper to attribute wholesale attribution to the Kenyan fabric as entirely corrupt. To the contrary, the leadership of this country leads and steers corruption. Now, in terms of, Trevor, why Friday is attractive for all these malfeasance, you arrested on Friday, the next possible court date you will face is Monday. The law requires you to be presented to courts within 24 hours. So when you're arrested on Friday, you panic. And Kenyans not wanting to spend time in our cells, which are deplorable, they will do what they must do not to be in the cells. So that partly explains the problems we have with Friday. Now, in terms of reforms, culture. The other day I heard somebody talk of Kenyans giving fuel money, and that should not be perceived as corruption. That's the culture we see at the top. Culture, you bring in rotten persons and squeeze them in, contrary to procedure and the law, during police recruitment. Culture, you have police officers who have done things that are wrong, and my good friend Irongo Houghton talks of the blue code. The blue code steps in. Instead of taking action, we take all manner of possible means to save our brother, our sister. Ojwang hit his head on the wall, and he died. As if we are stupid, we don't know what happened. We also need to fund IPOA here. IPOA cannot conduct its work relying on the police. IPOA needs independence.
All right.
That's for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me bring in Charlie on this. What recommendations did you make? I'll come back to the audience in just a bit, and you can also pose your questions as we go along. Yes. What recommendations did you make in terms of reforms? Because we're talking about the Ransley report in 2009, 16 years down the line. What do we keep getting wrong as a country?
First of all, we have to enforce accountability. And accountability is in two fronts. One, there has got to be enforcement of criminal liability on the police perpetrators who commit these abuses.
And this cannot be done by IPOA?
It can be done by IPOA, the ODPP, and other institutions. You see, when you look at history, you find that we have had so many cases of police excesses. However, when you look at the convictions that we've had, they are very minimal as compared to the excesses that have been perpetrated since independence. And so, if you do not make somebody personally liable for their criminal conduct, then it will not deter others of like mind. So that has got to happen. But also, I think there's an issue also, and I'm agreeing with some of us who've spoken on the issue of recruitment. Because the moment you get that wrong, for example, if somebody has got to pay money to be recruited into the force, then the first thing he does once he's recruited is to try and recover the money that he spent, which means then it becomes a cycle. We must have a very proper, robust process of recruitment that is open, that is transparent, and that can pass the test of time. But then also, we need to boost coordination and data sharing. Policy is informed by data. This report that we have produced, for example, has a lot of data. And so we must invest in research and data so that we inform the policies that we make. Also, we require technology. There is no reason, for example, why in 2025 we still have an analog OB. Yeah? Why don't we make it digital? Why don't we make the exercise of police recruitment first you do online applications before you come to psychiatric evaluation and interviews and all that? Do online applications so that it is transparent. So we have enough fodder and we have enough suggestions, we just do not act on them. And what we need to understand is that every other thing is dependent on a proper, efficient policing system. You cannot have a good economy when you don't have an efficient policing system. You cannot have a proper democracy when you do not have a policing. I mean, it affects all sectors of the society. And that's how important we have to look at the issue of police reforms, but we now have to start acting more than we speak.
All right. Hassan, I know you have something to say, but let me take a quick commercial break. I'll come back with you to react on this. And I know there's also a lot of questions and comments from the audience as well. Let's take that quick commercial break. We're back with this conversation in just a bit.
All eyes on me.
View sasa ndio nyumbani kwa the best local dramas.
Nataka ripoti ya Hansi pamoja na mkewe.
Comedy za kuvunja mbavu. Telenovela bora zaidi kwa lugha yako.
Ana area ina prita. Tokendoki mara wi mora.
Na sasa una nafasi ya kushinda zawadi nono ndani ya promotion kubwa ya Jipange na View sasa.
Jipange ushinde na View sasa.
Shinda 50,000 kila siku, $500,000 kila wiki na grand prize ya 2 million shillings.
Wow.
Ingia kwa View sasa hivi kwa kupitia paybill 724177 au tembelea viewsasa.com. Weka nambari yako ya simu kama akaunti yako. Kisha weka 50 bob tu na upate content na point na uende kama mshindi. Ingia mara nyingi uwezavyo. Kila ukiingia kwa View sasa, unaongeza nafasi yako ya kushinda. Imeidhinishwa na BCLB number.
Shinda mamilioni.
Luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam.
Wrap your whole family in a long-lasting embrace. Our sensory range transforms your daily self-care into sensorial delight. Our men's range is built to elevate your grooming routine. Imperial Leather, long-lasting luxury for you.
Are you coming to the tree? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
See the extraordinary life of Bildad Kagia of the Kapenguria 6 live on stage at the Kenya National Theatre from the 11th to the 19th of October. Tickets available at View Tickets. Kagia, the Kenya that could have been. Brought to you in partnership with Royal Media Services, Citizen Digital.
Luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam, luku mpiai, luku diriba, luku mpiai, luku ni piam.
It's big, bigger than you can imagine. It's massive. It's the biggest jackpot. Shabiki Super Jackpot Sahini 100 million. Yes, predict 17 games na 99 bob na ujishikie 100 million. Bonuses ni from 13th correct prediction. Na ukipata zote wrong, usiwori, bado kuna bonus. Hii ndio jackpot. Shabiki Super Jackpot is now at 100 million. To play, download app ya Shabiki on Play Store or SMS SJP to 29063.
Gaming is addictive. Play responsibly. Not for persons under the age of 18. Shabiki.com is authorized and regulated by BCLB. License number BK 0001080.
Teke Teke na Wigo Boda. Chanua Jam, fika on time at the lowest charges in town. Va helmet and ride in style. Ni safi, ni safe, na ni easy kwa mfuko yako. Wigo, your trusted ride. Download the app now. Ama SMS Wigo to 20425. You'll fike right on time. Wigo, your trusted ride.
All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. We're still live from KMTC, Nairobi here. We're speaking about the justice system response to police accountability. And Hassan, you wanted to jump into what Chahale was talking about reforms, but more directly to you, what kind of reforms does IPOA require to be more effective? The death of Albert Ojwang has been mentioned by several of our audiences here. And on that day, you appeared next to the Inspector General and even had to apologize. Yeah. But the reality is, you do work together. Yeah. The same people you're oversighting, but you still work with them. So how then do they give you evidence to oversight themselves? What kind of reforms do you need as IPOA to be more effective?
See, every reform is informed by the history of the country and the history of the police. In Africa, I think, apart from South Africa, Kenya is the only other country that has got a civilian oversight. And if you study the history of South Africa, the policing in South Africa, it's another one in Kenya. There was a context. There was a lot of abuse of power, excessive use of lethal force from the post-election violence. You talk about the Ransford report, the Waki Commission report, all of that. So there was a need to have a civilian oversight. The question is, and Dr. Ogada has actually captured this very much. By the way, you've got a very good paper on democratizing the police in Kenya. Are we waiting for Godot? I read it, and I think it's a very good, you raise very fundamental questions. But the point is, the culture, the customs, the traditions in the police system has not changed. We may have changed, we may have a new constitution. We may have a new Police Service Commission Act, a new Police Service Act, IPOA Act. But until we address the underlying systemic issues in the police, and this begins from training, from recruitment, until we actually go back to that. And there's also the political will to ensure there's actually proper civilian oversight of the police. We are all working for the same people of Kenya, whether it's the police, IPOA, civil society, media. We are working for the Kenyan people. We want to have a professional police force which has got the highest standards of discipline and it's able to enjoy the confidence of the Kenyan people. I mean, the reason why an armed officer in uniform can stand in the middle of a road and stop a vehicle is because we have given him that power. He is the symbol of the law and authority. But that cannot be abused. We must have a way of checking it. All police officers are not bad. I mean, majority are hardworking people. In fact, I even follow some of them. They're very religious. There's a good one I know who's a preacher in Islamic affairs, and I follow him, an AP officer. So there are quite a number of officers who are very good, actually, in their own right. But the few that are spoiling their image, they must be held to account. And the police cannot, using the blue code of silence or trying to protect the institution, refuse to cooperate with the investigators, refuse to allow for accountability. And Trevor, it is true, IPOA is a civilian institution. It is very hard to provide an effective mandate against an armed police force. So we must have more than just the civilian authority in the act. We are actually asking for more powers. For example, the powers to allow our officers, especially the investigators, to arrest. We're asking for more powers over the evidence collection. Now,
arrest the same officers you're investigating.
Yes. And even allowing officers to be armed, those who are investigating. So we have gone to South Africa and studied their civilian oversight.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of lessons that we have learned. Even Parliamentary Committee on Security went with us to South Africa. They came back and they recommended certain reforms to the Act. So we have to empower IPOA. Number two, we have to allow IPOA to go to all regions. What you see in the media is what is there in the 8 regions because of the availability of media and the medium of communication. You are able to report those complaints in those 8 regions. But if you go to Marsabit, if you go to Moyale, if you go to Msambweni, if you go to other far-flung counties, there are worse violations going on. But because we can't receive the complaints, you don't know. So it's more or less unknown. So these 34,000 complaints are from those who are able to know that it's actually a formal way of complaining.
Okay.
But majority are not aware.
Yeah.
A quick one again on what Ogara was talking about, the Kamata Fridays. Sorry. You know, we have seen the report, and I think if we make sure that the OB is digitized, and every time you arrest a person, a suspect, it must be recorded in the OB. Not you just keep him, and then he's kept in a cell for the family to come and pay money. If we're able to insist on that, and I think IPOA does impromptu inspections of the police stations, and when they go there, they ask for the OB, and they compare with the people who are in the cell. And more often than not, they will find more people in the cells than those recorded in the OB. Your guess is as good as mine why that's so. Of course, by Monday, you look at the data of those who have been taken to court and compare to those who have been brought in on Friday or Saturday, there's a big difference. So again, there's a need to have more transparency in the OB system. And finally, the recruitment of the police is, so before I go there, the issue of sexual harassment in the police force. We also receive complaints from police officers against their own, against themselves. And we are allowed to do that in the Act. And these are about, of course, most are about promotions and transfers, but also sexual harassment claims. And we do have a very close working relationship with IAU and the DCI on this. But to come back to the recruitment issue, IPOA actually went to court in 2014 to cancel the police recruitment. After that, IPOA has monitored 7 police recruitments since then. And we have collected evidence from, best practices and patterns, which NPS need to look at to have a good police. And I'm happy that the National Police Service Commission chairman or the CEO is not here, because they will have actually given their own input into this. But the problem is that even the current recruitment, if you look at the advertisement, they don't indicate the number of people they're going to recruit. That's an area, for example, if you're going to Siaya or Homa Bay or Garissa, you don't know how many are they going to take from that station. 10, 20, it's only known to the recruitment panel. We have to make it more transparent and more clear. And finally, we wanted to bring in the use of technology in recruitment of the police. If you want the police to become more IT savvy in future, if you want to make the OB digital, if you want to make evidence collection digital, then at least at the recruitment stage, let them apply online. Let them be vetted online. I mean, why do you have to go back to the manual system?
Let me bring in Rungu on this. Rungu, you give us you mentioned earlier on that, is this a system problem or a people's problem? Because we keep talking about recruitment. So are we saying that once the recruitment is sorted out, then all these systemic issues are done? Because we have the Internal Affairs Unit, we have IPOA, all those levels of accountability, but still, the results are dismal.
I mean, I think we have to look at it from the context of power and how power is exercised both within the National Police Service, between the National Police Service and the oversight authorities, and between the police officers and the communities that they are policing. So I think power is the word that is as important as the word culture. We should not forget, for example, that extortion and corruption usually is built around a pyramid system, and that people are actually deployed to roundabouts. They're deployed to roadblocks based on a set of targets that their superiors have requested, and that process goes up and up and up. Now, I am hoping that in the case of Albert Ojwang, we will discover how far up was and how accurate was his allegation. Apparently, the thing that had him arrested and taken 600 kilometers to his death at Central Police Station was an allegation that he made against the Deputy Inspector General. Now, that needs to be cleaned up, and the public needs to know whether there was any merit in that argument, and it will set free the Deputy Inspector General, or it will essentially hold him culpable for that. So I think it's important to recognize that there are systems that are built around certain incentives that ensure that we don't have officers who are ethical, who are outspoken. If I remember the police officer who came out publicly and said that I will not use my weapon to shoot to death a protester, and he was immediately transferred to a remote part of the country, as if moving him to a remote part of the country makes the country safer. I think we have to be clear that those officers who are ethical, those officers who are professional, those that work within a human rights framework, those are the officers that should be in charge of police stations. Those are the officers who should be in charge of divisions. And ultimately, the Inspector General, the two Deputy Inspector Generals, the head of the DCI, that they are held essentially to a standard that is one, linked to international human rights standards, but secondly, is linked to the legal standards that we have in this country. I think that's how we create a pyramid system that works for the country, as opposed to one that works against the country.
Okay. What policy reforms do you recommend in general? Because we started this way back in 2009. 16 years down the line, we are still in a circumlocucious argument, still talking about the same things and nothing changes.
I think from where I sit, it's not about adding more reforms. It's really implementing what we have. For example, we have the National Coroner's Service Act. We are yet to fully implement that. And if we implement the National Coroner Service Act, it means in every county we'll have a coroner who investigates suspicious deaths. Then we'll have the national coroner. So that is one. So for me is, what do we have? Why is it not working? What should work? So that is one. Two, part of the study spoke about issues of corruption. Right now we have the anti-corruption amendment bill that is aimed at strengthening the EACC to be able to deal with issues of corruption, especially economic crimes. We have the whistleblower bill that has been pending for a long time. We need that so that we can now be able to protect and have a proper coordinated system to protect whistleblowers. In the Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill, it also aims to strengthen the Witness Protection Agency in terms of strengthening its witness protection measures and strategies, but also to also begin providing fast line protection, special protection to whistleblowers. But even without those, we have enough legislation. We have enough institutions. I think we need to ask ourselves, how do we bring to account those individuals who are providing the leadership and the oversight to those offices. We also must move when it comes to issues of criminal responsibility. We also must move not only to the individual accountability, but we also must start pushing command responsibility.
Okay.
So that the command responsibility becomes accountable to the offenses that they have provided instructions to.
Okay. I want to open the floor for questions and comments, but let me hear what Owino has to say in reaction to the response that you got from the audience, saying that we are not innately a corrupt nation. And also Irungu mentioned that there's allegations of targets from the high and mighty in offices who tell you that this is the target at this roadblock.
First of all, I'm happy the lady from Central, I suppose, said that she came to me and she got solutions to our problems. I think I have had that record in all my areas that I've worked, that I've always given solutions. But you see, that's an individual policeman. There are 120,000 policemen, and there are many officers who are giving solutions to problems. I don't think every day policemen are just making mistakes and doing wrong things. Otherwise, it would be unbearable to live if that is what would happen to us. But we must agree that there are a few that have given the police a very bad image. I can't sit here and tell you I've not been offended by police officers. Even as I speak with you, sitting with you here today, there's a senior police officer who has openly not only offended me, but offended people that I know. And the matters are being handled by some other people. So it's not that we don't feel it. For example, as a policeman, you come from a family. My children are not policemen. My family, my relatives are not policemen. And I see what happens every day, and that's why I face reality with the situation. But what I can tell you is that there are things that sometimes when you've been somebody who has put on uniform, people tend not to listen properly to you. I just want to give you a very good example. If any of you, and I want to gather in particular because I'm told you are writing books, I want you to look at the strategic plan that the police did in 2004-2008, the police strategic plan 2004-2008. It was guided by the late Commissioner Nyaseda and his deputy, who was Madam Kagunda, a very renowned police officer who studied in UK for her master's degree. And by the way, Ogada is from, not Ogada, the gentleman from Boda Boda team.
Ken.
The police have always recruited very educated people. The first commissioner of police, Bernard Hinga, was appointed commissioner of police in 1964, just after 1 year after we had gotten our independence. Was a student of Alliance High School in 1954 and got Division 1. That time there was still no advanced level, and they were going directly to Dar es Salaam for diplomas in various subjects and then proceeding for degree programs.
So it's not about the qualification?
No, I'm just trying to tell him.
Yeah.
Kanyotu, who was the first director of special branch, was recruited in police in 1959 with a degree from Makerere University. They were with the Kinakibaki in Makerere.
Yeah.
And many, many others. Even the latest, Madam Kaindi, who was DIG of police, was a student of Kenya High School. From 1 to 6, went to Dar es Salaam University, lost her father when she was still in the university, and was recalled back to join the police. A number of them. Owino here is a top student. People went to school, understand that, and they know that. So we are not talking about police fearing to recruit. And equally, you must know that you cannot employ everybody at management level. Police have, some will be drivers, some will be bodyguards, some will be working in the far flank areas, and not everybody would be promoted to management level, even if you go to military. So you mix a number of people. In 2012, no, even before 2012, if you look at the strategy, what I was telling you, 2004-2008, the police are the ones who recommended that they wanted a civilian oversight, to oversight them, because we had complaints where a policeman has committed an offense, and then it is the same police to investigate him. Sometimes there was biasness amongst police officers. Your colleagues target you to remove you because maybe they have seen your ability and progress. And then what happens is we felt if we use...
Apologize for that slight technical hitch. Yes, you're winding up on this. And there was also a concern about their arrests every Friday.
Now,
is it targeted? Yes, we're handling that.
So, what is that?
It's being sorted out. It's our sound issue. Go ahead.
I think, yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you look at, there were reasons why policemen wanted to have a civilian oversight. One of them was within themselves, you would find that you can be targeted by your colleagues. And therefore, it was fair that we have a civilian oversight to investigate you in case there's even an internal complaint.
All right.
So it was the wish of the police to have an internal affairs unit. Equally, the police cannot be members of trade unions. Because if you allow policemen to be members of trade unions, they can go on strike. If policemen go on strike for just an hour, hell will break loose. So the police needed to have a civilian oversight that would also act as an institution and look after their welfare. I remember the first IPOA team under Chairman, what was his name? Masharia. They are the ones who went and even made recommendations on police housing, said it was very pathetic. You find 4 policemen living in one house, one is sleeping in a sitting room, two in various bedrooms. Imagine you are a young man, you have gone for work at night, you have left your wife sleeping in the bedroom, in the sitting room, and there are two other men in that house sleeping in various bedrooms. If you will have concentration at your place of work, or you've left your daughter, who is 15 years old, that lives with you and goes to school, and you've left some young men living in the same house.
Okay.
So Macharia made such recommendations. I said, no, let's have better ways of living. So IPOA is a very important institution for the police, not only for oversighting what they have done against the public, but also for their welfare and also for their own support as an institution.
All right. Okay.
So what I'm trying to say, and then there's the issue we're talking about on Friday. I'm still coming back to the lady. The truth of the matter is, yes, there are officers who target you, take advantage of you to get money. But basically, we must also agree that our culture, our behavior on over weekends, in terms of persons, like for example, when we have alcohol on the roads, as much as there are officers who may target to take money, but equally there are people who will not leave that club. They leave their cars and take an Uber and go home because they fear getting arrested. And that also prevents a lot, because there are people who would otherwise have lost their lives. So what we are saying is we must agree that the police is necessary. And we must also agree that we must modernize and make our police better, collectively as a country.
All right.
The last thing,
Yes, very briefly, because I have to open the floor for questions.
It's
There are quite a
okay.
number
The last
of them.
thing that I would want to put up, in 2011, when we did our first police Service Act, we placed minimum admission into police at grade C plane. Parliamentarians fought it, and they amended it. We said we wanted to have head of police interviewed, apply, interview. Politicians fought it. So some of these things, please, ask your representative.
Okay, all right. That's a good place. Yes. Let's come to the audience first, and I'll take just your name, your question, or your comment as we move. Yes, sir, you have the microphone. Let's start with you.
My name is Brian Otieno. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I'm involved in periodic legal aid clinics in Kisumu West. One of the matters that arises repeatedly is the question of police officers refusing to investigate crimes. And my question is to IPOA. Investigate crimes.
Yes.
Yes, a report is made to a police station, and for months on end, the complainant is told that they are still investigating, and they lose hope in the course.
Okay. The question, please.
The question is this within the domain of IPOA to take action against police officers who refuse to exercise their duty under the Act? And then there is the question of Article 245 of the Constitution of Kenya. Article 245(4), and I'll paraphrase, says that the Inspector General of Police will not be under the direction of anybody in matters of investigation. Is it arguable that this section sort of abets misconduct in that a police officer can refuse to investigate, and under the Constitution, nobody can direct them on matters of investigation?
Okay.
Is it a section that needs to be reformed?
All right. Thank you, Brian. Pass the microphone to the lady behind you. Yes, sir. You have the microphone.
Yes. My name is Peter Ambuka, and I'm a member of the clergy and also a counseling psychologist. My question is, what needs to be done to policemen who arrest people without any reason, put them in cells, just to extort money from them? The reason why I'm saying that is that there is a case that I handled of a young man in our church who was getting married on Friday, and it was on Saturday, and he was arrested on Friday at 11.
Okay.
The first thing he did is that he had, Friday. The first thing he did is that he had a brother-in-law who is a police officer.
Yeah.
He called him when he was arrested. He's an Uber boda boda rider.
Okay.
He called him to talk to the officer who was arresting him. When his brother-in-law talked to the officer told him, huyu ni mabusu wa OCS, endo uongee na OCS. So the young man was taken to the police station, and on his way there, he called me also. And I went to the police station. I arrived before his brother-in-law, who is a police officer.
Okay.
I entered the OCS office, and we spoke, and I told him the reason why I was there. Then the OCS called the person, the officer man in the desk, the report desk, asked the young man to be brought to me. We talk. As we were talking, the brother-in-law came. He entered the OCS office, and then he came out, and he saw us standing with his brother-in-law, and he told me, you know, the OCS was thinking that I was coming for another mabusu, and you are coming for another.
Okay.
And he has ordered me, if he's going to release my mabusu, I need to go and arrest somebody else, bring them to the police station
as a
in
replacement.
exchange.
Okay.
So what can be done?
All right, thank you.
Thank
yes,
you.
the lady behind you, pass the microphone to the ladies behind you. The ladies haven't spoken much. Yes.
I'm Joy Somina Umolo.
Yes, Joy.
I'm a survivor from Nyalenda slums. My question is, why is it that the youth, the informal workers, the Muslims, people with dreadlocks like mine here, and people with tattoo are the ones being targeted during maybe mandamanos and maybe cases of police brutality? Does it mean that we people with the dreadlocks are less of human? Even if you look at me from just the first look, do I look like a gangster? Do I look like a gangster? I just saw a sister of mine here with a jungle green with a tattoo. Are we supposed to judge her? Okay. Because she has a tattoo.
Okay.
Now this thing is rampant, and you'll realize that even if 10 are arrested, and if they were to release somebody, then people with tattoo, people with dreadlocks will remain.
Okay.
Will remain, and they will be even beaten even more. So I need to know whether the law only favors the rest and it excludes those with dreadlocks and tattoos.
All right. Let's pass the microphone back. There are quite a number of questions at the back. We haven't heard from them, and I'll request someone to help me in the passing of the microphones over there so that we have some level of control.
Thank you, Trevor, for the opportunity.
Yes.
I'm this side because you have ignored us very much. So my question goes to the police spokesman, the former police spokesperson. We have seen police being deployed heavily during the peaceful demonstrations, and especially during the Gen Z demonstrations, especially in the major cities. My question is, what key reforms do you think should be done to address this matter of police killing peaceful demonstrators, and also for the police to understand that it is our constitutional right to demonstrate and it's not a threat to the country? Thank you.
What's your name?
John Mooley.
John.
Yes.
Okay, let's take one more question, then I'll allow my panelists to answer really briefly, because then we take a next set of questions. Yes, the lady back there.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Mary, and my question goes to the police officer. You mentioned that people have opted to bribe, and these are the citizens. My question is, do you think, let me talk in Kiswahili.
Sawa.
Like wamedecide, wanaweza kuwa wameamua aje kukuwa wanataka kubribe. Inaweza kuwa ni fear, harassment or something. Because utaniambia nimetoka nje nimepigwa na mtu huko nje, and then nimekuja nataka kusaidika, and then nimetishwa kitu. What will I do? Get back home na injuries zangu.
Okay. So swali ni wanawezaje kuwa wameamua kubribe?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, my name is Simon Mugo from KMTC Nairobi campus. My question goes to the oversight authorities. How does the Kenyan justice system support victims of police brutality? And I have seen that you are really providing statistics on that. Could you also kind of give us a statistic on, based on the previous demonstration, how many citizens who underwent police brutality were compensated, or rather they were given the legal aid?
Okay, thank you. Hassan, I'll start with you so that you answer really fast from Brian's question, and then you go to Sami so that we move very fast. Just in one line, one sentence, briefly. The first question was on whether is this within IPOA's domain, dealing with police who harass their people, from Brian.
You know, apart from investigating and receiving complaints against the members of the public, against the police IPOA also conducts inspection of police premises, police housing, police stations, police training centers, all manner of police infrastructure. And it's because of those inspections that IPOA made recommendations, including for housing and for medical cover and other issues. But the point I want to make is this. There is the employer of the police, the National Police Service Commission, whose role it is to look at the welfare of the police. Our role is to make sure that they are very professional, they are disciplined, and they observe the human rights of the people. As a corollary to our work, we find this other lack of housing proper, poor pay, and this comes as a report to the minister, to the police, and to Parliament. So I wanted to make this very clear, because I heard you also in the previous show saying that IPOA only looks at the police for their crimes, but don't look at their welfare. We are not supposed to do that. It's not our role as IPOA first to look after the welfare of the police. That's the job of the employer. But as Kenyans, as a state agency, we also have to work very hard to ensure that the police have got the right environment to work. Now, to come back to the question about the IG having the power to investigate. Of course, that is the constitutional imperative, and Dr. Wada can help you with this also. I believe that acts of parliament also have been passed to give effect to these broad principles. We have the IG, but we also have the DCI, who have got their own mandate. We have IPOA, which has been given the mandate to investigate complaints against the police. Sometimes it's true, you will find that there is a conflict where IPOA is investigating a police officer because a complaint has come from a member of the public, or is a matter of public interest. And then you will see the same file, the same case, DCI is investigating. Or also IAU, Internal Affairs Unit, is investigating. And at the end of the day, you will have 3 files go to the DPP. More often than not, you will combine them together and pick one, or use the one of IPOA as the one to investigate. For us now, we don't have the power to arrest or to prosecute. We rely on the DPP to do the prosecution. As we are speaking now, more than 40 police officers have been arrested, convicted, and they have served, either are serving or have served sentences. But there are not many, there are 40. Now, when it comes to the IG to investigate offenses, that's a very broad power. As IPOA, we have been given an authority under Article 244 of the Constitution, which allows for civilian oversight on the security forces to ensure that they also have maintained the highest standards of discipline and respect the fundamental human rights of the people.
Okay.
So ours is to make sure that this quality are observed.
Okay. I want us to be brief so that we take as many questions as possible. We know there's a question for you from Peter. What needs to be done to policemen who extort people? He mentioned the Mabuswa OCS.
I don't think that question was directed to me. But even before I go to that question...
He mentioned the police spokesperson, your former police spokesperson.
That question was raised by this gentleman.
Peter. Yes, Peter.
And I don't think it was... he talked about arbitrary arrest and extortion of money. You know, this is within the police.
Yeah.
The police have their own internal mechanisms of discipline. We even have something called orderly room proceedings, where an officer is charged, just like in the court of law, but disciplinary. When there's a complaint about arbitrary arrest or extortion of money, then internally within the police bosses ought to discipline this officer and charge him accordingly. Equally, we have the internal affairs unit within the police that can investigate and even have this officer charged. And on top of it, we have the Independent Police Oversight Authority. That is the institution that would ensure that this happens. But what surprises me is that I heard here that we have cases where individuals are put in custody and they are not booked in the OB. As a young junior officer, I never experienced that because our OCSS used to inspect police stations at least once before midnight and once after midnight, just to ensure that persons who are in custody have been booked in the occurrence book, because that is illegal. If that happens, then at that time you would even lose your job. I don't know what would be happening in that particular case if that one still takes place where you find a situation. But I would challenge IPOA again that they can have regular inspections because they're allowed to be visiting police stations, even with the help of officers in charge, at least to be checking on persons who are in custody even at night. In case we would have situations where there are people put in custody and they're not recorded in the occurrence book. And even having a digital OB will not help you because the same officers who is booking in the hard book copy is the same one who will be entering your reports in digital. So that oversight is equally very, very important, that should be done. But before I conclude, Chair and my friend, he's been chair of very many institutions, including IEBC. I have never said that IPOA should look at the welfare of the police. I've only said our expectations when we had 204, 208 is that apart from oversighting on discipline of the police police don't have a voice. They cannot have a union. So we said that IPOA ought to support the police in looking at areas where they are maybe not doing very well and make recommendations the way they had made in terms of police housing. Not that, I'm lucky that this process of the constitution and reform of the police is something I've done and it found me at the peak of my career. So I understand it very well. The biggest question, Trevor, is this question of demonstrations, conflict. Kenyans are demonstrating every day and we don't see conflicts. The only time we see conflicts is when we have what we call political demonstrations. That is where we have the biggest problem. Because we have what we call the Public Order Act that nobody wants to listen to. The purpose of public order is to ensure that as much as you agitate and express your dissatisfaction on certain actions, you don't need, because if you look at, I've always said that the biggest gain that Kenyans got in the Constitution was the Bill of Rights. And it is said that rights have limits. As you enjoy your rights and fundamental freedoms, you don't prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. Imagine that people are carrying out demonstrations in Nairobi, and your mother is very sick and she's getting transported from Meru. And when you reach the Globe Cinema roundabout, you lose your mother because she cannot reach Nairobi Hospital. So what we are saying is that ordinarily, if you look at, if we are not biased and we are able to teach ourselves, you will find that when you carry out your demonstrations, that is why it is said, you need to say, what time do you want to carry out your demonstration? Which route do you want to follow? Where do you want to assemble? But you see, when we have demonstrations, some people are in Thika Road, some people are in Mombasa Road, some people are in Kibera, some people are in Mathare. We have very few police officers to manage this. Some people are looting supermarkets, surely. There's something which we say in my mother tongue, Yanyugwang, Yanyugweno. He knows about it. You ask yourself, now, because these are our policemen. This is our country. And we cannot be in a country where we don't promote law and order. So what I humbly want to request, especially the younger persons, that number one, I want to encourage many of you to join police. And number two, I want, and I know many of you will. And number two, I also want to encourage you to be obedient to the law of the land. So that let us follow laws and regulations so that we don't get into conflict unnecessarily with our brothers and sisters who are policemen.
I see there's still a lot of reactions here, but let me hear what Charlie has to say. Charlie, is there any evidence towards what Joyce had mentioned, that there are some youth in informal areas, especially those with dreadlocks and tattoos, who tend to be targeted by police?
Yes. Yes, there is. Actually, when we conducted the study, we found out that there are some factors that predispose